You ever think about shaking things up a little? She asked, swirling her wine like a woman on the brink of confession. I looked up from my beer, half listening. You mean like moving? Changing jobs? She gave a small laugh. Tight, amused, not quite warm. No, I mean us. Our marriage. The physical part of it. My brain stalled for half a second. We'd been married 9 years. Comfortable years. Some hot, some dull. Most somewhere in the middle. 2 kids, 1 golden retriever, a house in a good school district. Stability was our unspoken agreement. I'm listening, I said, voice cautious. Claire leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand, her fingers trailing lazily across the rim of her glass. What if we tried something different? Something that opens us up a bit? I raised an eyebrow. Are you talking about, what, a threesome? Not quite. She hesitated. Well, maybe. I guess it depends on how you define it. There was a long pause between us. One of those moments where the world slows, like the universe itself is waiting to see if you'll lean in or run. Claire, I said slowly, where is this coming from? She bit her lip, eyes glancing toward the sliding glass door behind us. The kids were asleep. The house was quiet. And yet, she looked over her shoulder as though someone might be listening. It's not coming from anywhere, she said. I've been thinking. We've fallen into a rhythm. It's good. It's safe. But maybe a little too safe? We could spice things up. And I don't mean just with toys or blindfolds or, God, I don't know, sex in the laundry room. I smirked despite myself. Laundry room's overrated. Exactly. She grinned, and then her face softened. This isn't about us being broken. I'm not saying I'm unhappy. I just think there's room for curiosity. I let the silence linger as I really watched her. Claire was still stunning, legs tucked beneath her on the outdoor couch, shoulders bare in a silky cami, her golden hair slightly tousled like she hadn't decided if she wanted to seduce me or argue. She was always beautiful. But this was something different. There was a sharpness in her tonight. I'm not against curiosity, I said carefully. But I need you to be specific. What are we talking about here? Swinging? Open marriage? She shrugged, trying to seem casual, but I could see the way her fingers tightened on the stem of her glass. Polyamory, she said at last, as if testing the word. Not full-on living with another partner poly, just experiences. Flirting. Exploring. Together. And who? I asked, suddenly wary. Did you have in mind for this exploration? Her answer was instant. Rachel. The name hung between us like a spell just cast. Rachel. 24. Petite. Big brown eyes, tousled black curls, and a voice like warm syrup. She'd started babysitting for us part-time when our youngest turned 2. A grad student in early childhood development. Quiet, respectful, kind. The kind of girl you never quite noticed until you did, and then you couldn't stop. I stared at Claire. You want to sleep with our nanny? She rolled her eyes. She's not our nanny. She's a grad student who helps us out occasionally. And don't act shocked. I've seen the way you look at her. I haven't looked. I started to protest, but she cut me off. You're a man. She's young, gorgeous, and funny. Of course you've looked. I've looked. The wine had done its job. Claire's cheeks were flushed now, her eyes glowing with a strange mix of mischief and vulnerability. And I was caught somewhere between bewildered and intrigued. You've looked? I asked, almost teasing. Claire's smile curled like smoke. I'm not dead, Ethan. I shifted in my seat, unsure if I was turned on or thrown off. Maybe both. So let me get this straight. You want to invite Rachel into our bed? Like as a guest star? Maybe not right away, Claire said. I mean, obviously we'd talk to her first. Look, I know it's out there, but I think she'd be open to it. I can tell. And I also know she's not the type to get attached. She's not looking for a husband. No, I muttered. But I am a husband. Claire reached out and touched my wrist gently. That's why I'm bringing this to you. I'm not sneaking around. I'm not doing anything behind your back. I'm saying, what if this is something we experience together? Just for fun. No jealousy. No pressure. I was silent for a long moment. Claire waited. And then, perhaps because of the wine, or the quiet thrill of imagining Rachel saying yes, I nodded. Okay, let's see if she's even remotely open to the idea. The next day, Claire texted Rachel and invited her over to help watch the kids while we hosted a neighbor's barbecue. I didn't say a word about our conversation, and neither did Claire. But that night, when the kids were asleep, and the house was still echoing with the smell of burgers and laughter. Claire poured Rachel a glass of wine and said, "Can we ask you something kind of weird?" Rachel looked amused. "Oh, that's always a good start." And so Claire told her. Honestly, gently, no pressure. Rachel went quiet for a moment. You could feel the tension in the air shift, almost like gravity itself had changed direction. "I mean," Rachel said slowly, setting her glass down, "I'm flattered. And maybe a little curious myself." Claire leaned in. "So that's a yes?" Rachel tilted her head. "It's a maybe, on one condition." We both looked at her. "I need this to be emotionally honest," she said. "No games. If we do this, I don't want to be anyone's secret. I don't want to be something you use to fix something broken. I need you to be honest, with me, and with each other." Her voice was calm, measured, but there was steel beneath it. Claire looked startled. And me? I looked at Rachel, really looked at her, and I realized this was not going to go the way we expected. 3 days later, Claire sat cross-legged on our bed with a yellow legal pad, chewing the end of her pen like she was drafting a peace treaty instead of rules for sleeping with the same woman. "I think we need boundaries," she said. "Not just for us, but for Rachel." I leaned against the headboard, trying to act like this was just another Sunday night conversation, like we were planning a budget or discussing paint colors for the hallway. But I could feel it, an electricity in the air, that crackle of something about to begin. Claire clicked her pen and started writing. "No overnights." "Fair," I said. "No jealousy." I gave her a slow look. "How exactly do we enforce that?" She shrugged. "We name it when we feel it. Talk about it. We don't punish each other for it." "Okay. No falling in love." That one hung in the air longer. Claire didn't look at me when she said it. Her pen hovered, waiting for me to agree. I nodded eventually. "Right. No feelings." She set the pad down and looked at me. "This is supposed to be fun, Ethan. Playful, not a threat. And what if it becomes one? Then we stop. Immediately." I reached for her hand, lacing my fingers with hers. "Are you sure about this?" Her eyes softened. "I'm sure I want to try." That night, Rachel came over after the kids were in bed. She wore a loose sweater and tight jeans, no makeup, hair damp like she'd just showered. She looked young, but not naive. There was a calmness about her, a kind of self-possession that made her feel older than she was. We poured wine, sat close on the couch, talked about nothing, movies, music, how Rachel hated pumpkin spice and Claire swore that was grounds for exile. But underneath it all, the current was unmistakable. The tension thrummed between us like a live wire. Rachel laughed at something Claire said, tossing her head back. Her sweater slipped slightly off one shoulder. My eyes lingered a second too long. She noticed, smiled. Claire noticed too. But instead of tightening, she relaxed, leaned closer to Rachel. "Would it be weird if I kissed you?" she asked. Rachel turned to face her, the smile fading to something more vulnerable. "Only if you don't mean it." Claire didn't respond with words, just closed the space between them and kissed her, slow and soft. I watched, heart thudding in my chest, trying to pretend this was still theoretical. It wasn't. When Rachel pulled back, her eyes met mine. "And you?" "I don't know," I admitted. "This feels surreal." Rachel shifted toward me. "You don't have to rush anything. I'm not here to break anything. Just explore." She kissed me, and her lips were warmer than I expected. Curious. Testing. My hand brushed her thigh, and she didn't pull away. Claire watched us, intently, but not unkindly. We didn't go further that night. Rachel left around midnight, hugging Claire at the door, then me. Her body was soft, warm, and familiar in a way that caught me off guard. After she left, Claire crawled into bed beside me. I expected tension, maybe regret. Instead, she smiled. "That wasn't awful." "No," I said, pulling her close. "It wasn't." Over the next 2 weeks, Rachel became a quiet part of our rhythm, not just in the house, but in us. She came by a couple nights a week after the kids were asleep. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes things got physical, more kisses, hands exploring under fabric, but nothing that broke the rules. No overnights. No feelings. It should have felt chaotic, but instead, it was weirdly smooth. Rachel was careful, gentle. She never stayed too long, never inserted herself into spaces that weren't hers. She knew when to lean in and when to pull back. She asked questions. "Is this still feeling good? Do you need more space? Do you feel safe?" Claire thrived in the structure. She still set the rules, still felt in control. And at first, that was enough. Until the night she heard laughter behind the guest room door. I hadn't realized how long Rachel and I had been talking. She'd stopped by after Claire fell asleep. I was in the kitchen, making tea, when Rachel padded in barefoot and asked if I had any of that weird honey from Italy I'd once mentioned. We sat on the guest bed, laughing about something dumb, some weird story from her grad school cohort. I don't remember the joke, only that I laughed with my whole body. And Claire, apparently, had gotten up to pee. The door wasn't locked, just mostly closed. I saw the flicker of her silhouette behind it, just long enough to know she was standing there, just long enough to know she'd heard. Later that night, she curled away from me in bed. No words, no explanation, just silence, stretched tight as a wire. The next morning, she kissed me goodbye like always, smiled like always. But something in her eyes had shifted, and I couldn't stop hearing Rachel's voice from the night before, soft and close. You're easy to talk to, Ethan. That's rare. I hadn't thought much of it in the moment, but now it echoed. Because it was rare, even with Claire. And maybe that was what scared me most. Rachel started asking me questions no one else dared to. It wasn't during sex, or even anything close to it. It was one of those slow, liminal evenings, after the kids were asleep, Claire upstairs folding laundry with music playing in the background, and Rachel and I were sitting on the back patio, sharing tea in the quiet. There was something about her in those moments, unguarded, unafraid to sit in silence, then suddenly slip in a question like a blade beneath your ribs. Do you feel heard? She asked. I blinked. Sorry. She smiled. I mean in your life. Do you feel like people actually hear you when you talk? The question hit me like an aftershock. I laughed at first, out of reflex. What, like emotionally? Rachel tilted her head, still watching me. Yeah. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came. Claire had asked me a lot of things over the years, about groceries, bills, the kids' dentist appointments, the next contractor we were supposed to call, but not once could I remember her asking me something like that. And now here was Rachel, the 24-year-old guest star, in this strange new phase of our marriage, asking the most disarming question I'd heard in years. Honestly, I said after a while. Not really. She nodded. I thought so. How? I asked. Rachel sipped her tea. Because you pause every time I ask you something personal. Like you're checking if it's safe to be honest. I looked at her, then down at my hands. Claire had built this structure with such precision. She was never cruel, never even particularly distant. But it had become clear that in her world, some topics were off limits. It wasn't what she said, it was what she didn't say. The way she'd change the subject the second I talked about feeling tired or stuck. How she'd joke if I mentioned missing something. As if the idea that I needed something outside of her was a threat. Rachel didn't flinch when I brought those things up. She didn't minimize them. She listened. That night, nothing happened physically between us. We just talked until Claire appeared at the patio door, hair wet from her shower, arms crossed lightly. You guys still up? She asked, her voice casual. Rachel smiled. We lost track of time. Claire looked at me. Just for a second. I couldn't read her expression. Coming to bed? She asked. I stood. Rachel squeezed my hand gently as I passed by, not in a sexual way, more like I see you. Claire didn't say anything about it. But the next morning, she took a sharp left. I think we need to dial it back, she said at breakfast, flipping pancakes while the kids watched cartoons. I was pouring orange juice. Dial what back? This thing. The intimacy. I gave her a look. The sex. No, not the sex. The closeness. The emotional stuff. She's getting too comfortable. I set the juice down. You mean the conversations? Claire didn't answer right away. It's not a therapy session, Ethan, she said finally. This was supposed to be fun. A spark. Not a, whatever it is you two are building. I stared at her. You brought her in. I didn't invite her to take my place. That landed. Hard. I didn't respond. Neither did she. That evening, Rachel didn't come over. I told myself it was for the best. That maybe Claire was right. We were blurring the line. That maybe Rachel was getting in too deep. But then a message came. Rachel, just checking in. Everything okay? I stared at the text for a while before typing back. Me, yeah? Claire's feeling a little off about things. Rachel, understandable. Want me to give you space? Me, maybe just for tonight. Rachel, okay. Just be honest with her. Please. I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen. Be honest with her. Claire had always assumed I would be. She never asked for it, because in her mind, honesty wasn't something you offered. It was something you filtered through rules. Later that night, while she was brushing her teeth, she called from the bathroom. Did Rachel message you? I froze in bed, phone still warm in my hand. Yeah, I said. Just checking in. Claire appeared in the doorway, toothbrush hanging from her mouth. What did she say? I hesitated. She said she'd give us space. Claire gave a small nod and turned back to the sink. A few days passed. Rachel didn't text again. Claire didn't bring her up. It should have felt like the dust was settling, but it didn't. It felt like something had been put in a box, sealed, and labeled "Do Not Open." Then, Friday night, Claire went to a friend's birthday dinner and stayed out late. The kids were asleep. The house was quiet. I couldn't stop thinking about Rachel. Not her body. Her questions. The way she asked things no one else had the courage to. What do you need outside of sex? The words had come a week ago. We were lying on opposite ends of the guest bed, feet barely touching, talking about dreams and how hard it is to name what you've stopped asking for. I don't know, I'd said at the time. Maybe just someone who sees me. Rachel had nodded. That's not a small thing. Now, I couldn't unhear it. So I called her, just to hear her voice. She picked up immediately. Hi. Hi, I said, exhaling. I don't know why I'm calling. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Yes, you do, she said. And then she asked me something I wasn't ready for. Do you think Claire even wants the truth from you? Claire didn't accuse me outright. She didn't have to. It came out sideways, through tone, timing, and the careful way she chose her words like they were pieces on a board she still believed she controlled. You seem distracted lately, she said one evening while loading the dishwasher, not looking at me. Like you're elsewhere even when you're here. I leaned against the counter. I've had a lot on my mind. She hummed, a non-committal sound. We all do. That was the first cut. Small. Precise. Rachel hadn't been over in nearly 2 weeks. Not because of a fight or some dramatic boundary. Just a slow, mutual retreat. Claire claimed it was for the best. I told myself I agreed. But absence has a way of sharpening awareness, and without Rachel around, the house felt quieter in a way that had nothing to do with sound. Claire filled that space with control. She became more affectionate in public, hand on my arm at school pickup, a kiss before work that lingered just long enough to feel performative. At home, she tightened the rules without rewriting them. Casual remarks replaced discussions. She's very young, she said once, while folding laundry. I forget sometimes. Rachel? I asked. Yes. She's smart, obviously, but young. A pause. That usually comes with confusion. I said nothing. Another time, over dinner. I think emotional boundaries matter more than physical ones. Don't you? I looked up from my plate. You didn't seem to think that at first. She smiled thinly. I've had time to think. The irony didn't escape me. Claire had opened this door, confident she could manage whatever came through it. But now that something real had brushed past her, something she hadn't predicted, she was trying to shove it back out with quiet pressure and plausible deniability. And I was tired. Not angry. Not rebellious. Just tired of translating myself into something more acceptable. The night it finally surfaced, we were in bed, the lights off. Claire was tracing idle patterns on my chest, the way she did when she wanted reassurance without asking for it. You've been quiet, she said softly. So have you. She stilled her hand. I'm fine. I waited. She hated silence when she didn't control it. Ethan, she said finally, I need to know something. Okay. Are you bonding with her? There it was. The word landed heavier than accusation. Bonding implied intention, connection, something grown rather than accidental. I talked to her, I said. That's all. Claire exhaled sharply. That's not what I asked. I turned my head to look at her. Even in the dark, I could feel the tension radiating off her. You're getting close, she continued. Closer than we agreed. You said no feelings, I replied. You didn't say no conversation. Her jaw tightened. Don't be clever. I'm not, I said. I'm being honest. That word again. Honesty. The thing we kept circling without ever quite touching. This was supposed to be simple, Claire said. Fun. Not this. This what? She sat up abruptly. This emotional bullshit. This thing where you look like you're somewhere else when you're with me. I sat up too. You think I planned that? I think you leaned into it. The accusation stung because it wasn't entirely wrong. I had leaned in, not because I wanted to replace Claire, but because Rachel had made space without demanding performance. She listened without correcting, asked without assuming the answer. Claire crossed her arms. You're not supposed to love her. The words cut through the room. I stared at her, my mouth opening, then closing again. The truth hovered at the edge of my tongue. Not a declaration, not a denial, just a complicated, unfinished thing. I didn't answer. The silence that followed was louder than any fight we'd ever had. Claire laughed once, bitter. Wow. I didn't say anything, I said. You didn't have to. She swung her legs off the bed. I feel like an idiot. I thought I was being brave, open-minded. But really, I handed you something sharp and told myself it wouldn't cut. I watched her stand there, back to me, shoulders tight. For the first time, I saw fear beneath the confidence. Not of losing me, of losing control. I never meant to hurt you, I said. I know, she replied. That's almost worse. She left the bedroom and slept on the couch. The house held its breath around us. The next day, Claire was polite, distant, efficient, like a manager overseeing a department she no longer trusted. Rachel didn't text. I didn't reach out. But that night, lying alone in bed, I replayed the moment over and over. The way Claire had said love like it was an accusation instead of a possibility. And I wondered when exactly curiosity had turned into threat. Not because Rachel had changed, but because Claire had finally seen the reflection she didn't want to face. It was Claire's idea, of course. A small dinner, she said while dicing rosemary in the kitchen. Just a few friends. Keep things normal. The word normal struck me as strange, considering the unspoken Cold War unfolding between us. Rachel hadn't been over in more than a week. Not since Claire's quiet ultimatum, you're not supposed to love her. Since then, she'd been distant but oddly composed, like a woman carefully repairing a mask. She wanted to remind everyone, and maybe herself, that the marriage was still intact, still enviable, that she was still the woman who hosted charming dinner parties with matching linen napkins and minimalist playlists humming in the background. She even invited Rachel. She's part of our circle now, Claire had said, her voice perfectly even. It would be weird to leave her out. I looked at her for a long moment. You're okay with that? Are you? That answer wasn't a yes. But I didn't push. Rachel arrived last, fashionably late and effortlessly composed, in a black jumpsuit that somehow made her look both youthful and entirely out of Claire's league. Her curls were pinned up loosely, lips a soft berry shade, and she carried a bottle of wine like it was nothing more than a peace offering. Sorry I'm late, she said to Claire, eyes warm but cautious. Claire kissed her on the cheek. You're just in time. The house looked perfect. Soft lighting. A candlelit table for 8. Our friends had no idea what kind of quiet storm they were stepping into. During the appetizers, Rachel was the picture of grace, listening more than speaking, laughing easily, never once touching me unnecessarily. She sat between our friend Tessa and one of Claire's old colleagues, Jonah, a charming, overly confident tech consultant who clearly didn't know Rachel was off limits. Claire seemed relaxed, maybe too relaxed. Wine flowed. Laughter bloomed. For a moment, I could almost forget the sharp edges beneath the surface. Until Tessa asked, half drunk and full of mischief, So, how do you know Ethan and Claire again, Rachel? Rachel smiled. I help out with the kids sometimes. Started as a nanny, I guess. Oh, but you're more than that, Claire cut in smoothly. She's practically family now. Jonah raised an eyebrow. You're a grad student, right? What are you studying? Early childhood development, Rachel said. Working on a research project about emotional attachment in modern parenting. Claire laughed, sipping her wine. That sounds like a veiled way of saying we're screwing up the next generation. It's more about the patterns people fall into, Rachel replied gently, and how some parents don't realize when they're emotionally outsourcing intimacy. There was a pause. Claire's smile didn't flicker, but her knuckles whitened slightly on her wine glass. Sounds clinical, she said. Rachel shrugged. Feelings can be studied too. Tessa, oblivious, dove in. Well, you're amazing with their kids. Seriously, when I saw you with Ellie at the park last month, I thought you were her sister. Rachel smiled. She's a sweet kid. And Ethan, Jonah added. He's lucky to have such a great support system. The compliment wasn't loaded, but Claire flinched anyway. Her voice was cool. Yes, Ethan's always had good instincts about people. I caught Rachel's glance, brief, unreadable. By dessert, the tension was sticky, clinging to every glance. Claire kept smiling, hosting, performing. But I could feel it. She wasn't winning. After everyone left, hugs, laughter, leftovers packed in foil, Claire disappeared into the kitchen, stacking plates with mechanical precision. I stayed behind in the dining room, sipping what was left of the Malbec, trying to process how surreal the entire evening had been. Then Rachel appeared beside me, quiet as a ghost. "She's trying," she said softly. "I know. I don't want to make this harder," she added. "For either of you." I looked at her. "You weren't trying to." Rachel hesitated, then took a small breath. "I need to ask you something. And I don't want you to lie, even to protect her." "Okay." She looked directly into me. "Do I feel like a secret to you?" The words hit harder than I expected, because I had no answer that didn't betray someone. "You're not supposed to," I said finally. "But maybe you are." Rachel nodded. "That's what I thought." She set her wineglass down on the table. "I'm not here to make you choose, Ethan. But I won't disappear to make her feel better." "I know." She took a step closer, not touching me, not seductive. Just there. "I've always been honest with both of you. And if that's the thing that makes this fall apart, it was never real to begin with." Then she leaned in, not to kiss me, but to whisper, low and deliberate, "I feel like a secret. I don't want to be one." And then she left. Claire was still in the kitchen when I walked in, scrubbing a clean plate. "She gone?" she asked, not looking at me. "Yeah." "Did she say anything?" I hesitated. "She said she doesn't want to be a secret." Claire dried her hands, slowly. Then she set the towel down and looked up. "She's not the one hiding." I didn't reply, because for the first time in our marriage, I wasn't sure who I was protecting anymore. Claire waited until the morning after the dinner party to confront Rachel. It was early, quiet. The kids were at a sleepover. I was still in bed, half awake, when I heard the front door open. Rachel's voice floated in, followed by the familiar shuffle of her boots on the hardwood. She was dropping off a book Claire had lent her weeks ago. A small, innocent excuse. Or maybe a tether she hadn't been ready to cut. I heard them exchange brief greetings, low, polite. But it wasn't casual. The kind of careful tone women use when pretending nothing is wrong while everything is on fire. Then came the silence. Then Claire's voice. "Can we talk for a second?" Rachel didn't answer right away. I imagined her standing just inside the kitchen, coat still on, holding the book like a shield. I pulled on a sweatshirt and stepped halfway down the stairs. I couldn't see them, but I could hear everything. "I need to ask you something," Claire said, her voice tight. "Of course. Do you want him?" A pause. "I think you're asking the wrong question." "Don't do that," Claire snapped. "Don't pivot. Just answer me." Rachel's voice remained calm. "This isn't about possession, Claire. It never was. You're sleeping with my husband. You invited me to. Under my terms." "You gave terms," Rachel said. "But you didn't give space for truth." I stepped closer to the stairwell, still hidden, heart thudding. Claire scoffed. "You're so full of poetic language. Space. Honesty. Truth. But you came into my life, my family, and now you act like you're entitled to something. I didn't take anything you didn't offer." "That's the problem," Claire said, voice breaking. "You make it sound like I handed him to you on a silver platter. Like I'm some control freak who couldn't bear the idea of someone else getting close." Rachel said nothing. "I thought you were safe," Claire whispered. "That's why I chose you. You were supposed to be easy, detached, a fantasy, not a threat." The silence between them thickened. Then Rachel said, softly, "I've only ever been honest." Claire laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Honest. You've been strategic, sweet, supportive, always just vulnerable enough to seem real. But you've been playing a long game. Don't pretend you haven't noticed how he looks at you." "I have," Rachel said. "And I've noticed how you don't." I couldn't breathe. "You think I want to replace you?" Rachel continued. "I don't. I never did. But I also won't apologize for being seen. For being loved. If that's what this has become." "You don't get to say that." "I think I just did." Claire's voice dropped, low and raw. "You're trying to replace me." "No," Rachel said again. "I'm trying to not disappear. There's a difference." That's when I walked into the kitchen. Both women turned. Rachel looked startled but steady. Claire looked like she'd just slammed into a wall she didn't know was there. She stepped back, her eyes flicking between us. "How long have you been listening?" she asked. "Long enough," I said. My voice was hoarse. Claire folded her arms, her armor snapping into place. "Perfect. Then maybe you'd like to weigh in. Choose a side." Rachel turned to me quietly. That's not what this is. Claire raised her chin. Isn't it? I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw it. Not rage. Not cruelty. Fear. The woman who'd orchestrated this entire arrangement was terrified of losing control. Not just of me. Of the image. The order. The plan. I stepped forward, slowly. Claire, you started this because you wanted freedom. I wanted fun, Ethan. Not this. She waved her hand between me and Rachel. Not something that makes me feel like a stranger in my own home. You were the one who said no feelings. And you were the one who caught feelings anyway. Rachel said nothing. Claire turned to her. If this is hurting me, would you leave? Rachel met her gaze. Her voice was steady. If this is hurting you, I'll leave. But I won't lie to myself anymore. Claire's eyes flared. So I'm supposed to applaud you for being noble? No, Rachel replied. You're not supposed to do anything. Claire looked at me again. And you? What do you want, Ethan? I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know how to say. I want the honesty I haven't had in years. I want something that doesn't ask me to shrink. Instead, I just looked between them. The woman I built a life with and the woman who saw the parts one didn't even know were still alive. I want peace, I said finally. Claire blinked, like she didn't understand the word. Rachel took a slow breath. Then I'll go. No, Claire said sharply. Rachel stopped. Claire swallowed. Her voice cracked. If you leave, I won't be able to blame you anymore. Rachel's eyes softened. Claire, you don't have to be the villain, Claire whispered. I can do that part myself. And just like that, she sat down on the kitchen stool. Her shoulders crumpled. I'd never seen her cry like that. Not with rage. With surrender. Rachel stepped back, gently setting the book on the counter. Then she turned to me. Her voice was quiet. You have my number, she said. Call me if you ever want to live in the light. And then she walked out the door. Claire didn't move. Neither did I. The kitchen was still warm from the oven. The air smelled like wine and rosemary, and something slowly burning. Rachel didn't come back. Not the next day. Not the next week. She wasn't cold about it. She didn't block me or disappear into silence. She just stepped away. Respectfully. Deliberately. And that silence? It was unbearable. I found myself checking my phone at odd hours. Rereading old messages. Half composing texts I never sent. Wondering if I'd see her name light up the screen, even just with a neutral hey. It never came. Instead, life returned to what it had been before. Only emptier. Claire and I kept moving through the days like professionals sharing a workspace. Efficient. Polite. Acknowledging things without looking directly at them. She'd leave early to take the kids to school. I'd stay late at work just to avoid the silence in the kitchen. We didn't fight. We didn't touch. We just existed in adjacent lanes. One night, while folding laundry, she broke the quiet. I didn't think you'd miss her this much. I looked up from across the couch. I didn't think I would either. She nodded like she'd already guessed that. You're quieter now. You mean sadder. She shrugged. Same thing. I watched her for a moment. The woman I had built a life with was still beautiful, still composed, but she looked exhausted. Not just from what had happened. From pretending that this could still be what it once was. She asked the right questions, I said softly. Claire kept folding a towel. Like what? Like if I feel heard. If I feel like myself. And what did you say? I exhaled. I told her the truth. Claire gave a small, bitter smile. Well, at least one of us got the truth. That stung, but I let it hang there. We finished folding in silence. She stood to take the basket upstairs, then paused. You think she'll come back? I don't know, I said honestly. I'm not sure she should. Claire nodded once, then walked away. Rachel had always said she wanted emotional honesty. She got it. And now that she was gone, I realized how much I had come to depend on that honesty like oxygen. She didn't make me feel wild or reckless. She made me feel clear. And now the house felt like it had a phantom limb. The kids sensed it too, in their own way. They didn't ask where Rachel went. They just noticed she wasn't there. Ellie asked one night at bedtime, "Why doesn't Rachel read to us anymore?" "She's busy," I said. Ellie looked up at me. She always had time before. Out of the mouths of babes. Claire came home late the following Friday. I was in the kitchen, nursing a drink I didn't need, when I heard the garage door rumble open. She walked in carrying sushi and wine, like it was an anniversary. It wasn't. I didn't want to cook, she said, setting the bag on the counter. You didn't have to. She opened the wine without a word, poured us each a glass, and leaned against the counter. I think I broke something. I looked at her. You mean us? No, she said. You. I think I broke something in you. I didn't respond. I brought Rachel in because I thought I could control it, she continued. I thought I could add just enough chaos to feel alive again, without actually losing anything. She took a sip of wine. Turns out I was wrong. I studied her face. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even defensive. She looked stripped down, like she'd finally stopped trying to win whatever war she'd started. I don't think you broke me, I said, but I think you revealed a crack that was already there. Claire's eyes glistened. Do you still love me? I think so, I said slowly. But I don't think I love the version of us we've been pretending to be. She nodded. Me neither. There it was. Not an ending, but something dangerously close to it. That night, I couldn't sleep. So I drove. I didn't have a plan. I just found myself on the other side of town, outside Rachel's apartment building. The light was on. I almost didn't get out of the car. But then I did. My knock was soft. She opened the door in sweatpants and no makeup, holding a mug of tea. She looked surprised, but not shocked. Hey, she said. Hey. She stepped aside to let me in. The apartment smelled like lavender and books. I sat on the couch like I didn't know where I belonged. I don't know why I came, I said. Rachel didn't sit. She leaned against the edge of the armchair, watching me. I think you do. I met her eyes. I miss you. She nodded. I miss you too. I swallowed hard. I'm not sure what this is anymore, or what it was supposed to be. Neither am I, she said. But I know I don't want to live in the shadows, and I don't want to be a solution to someone else's problem. I don't want you to be, I said. She took a long sip of her tea. So what now? I looked at her, at the calm in her face, the steadiness in her presence. And I said what I hadn't said to anyone, not even Claire. I don't want to lose you. Rachel's expression softened. She set down her mug. If you want me in your life, Ethan, it has to be real. All of it. No hiding. No waiting for permission. I nodded, but I didn't touch her, because I didn't come for sex. I came for clarity. Rachel didn't ask me to stay that night. She poured me tea, sat across from me on her small couch, and listened. Nothing more. No touches. No pleading glances. Just two people sitting with the raw ache between them. And yet, it was the most intimate moment I'd had in months. I don't know how to do this, I told her. I don't know how to end something that isn't broken, but isn't whole either. Rachel folded her legs beneath her. Her apartment was softly lit, quiet, everything in it speaking of calm and chosen solitude. She didn't fill the silence. She waited. Finally, she said, you don't have to end anything right now, but you do have to stop lying to yourself. I looked at her. About what? About where you feel seen, where you feel real. The words felt simple, obvious, like they'd been hanging in the air for weeks, waiting to land. I think Claire thought this would be safe, Rachel continued. That I would be safe, because I was young, temporary, a distraction, but I was never playing her game. I wasn't trying to replace her. I was just here, and I stopped apologizing for that. I rubbed my hands together. She thinks I fell for you. Rachel held my gaze. Did you? I hesitated. And then, finally, quietly, I nodded. Yeah, I think I did. She didn't smile. She didn't look triumphant. She just breathed it in, like it hurt and healed at the same time. I can't do this in secret, she said. I won't be the affair. I won't be the mistake that keeps echoing through your marriage. You were never a mistake. But I am still hidden, she said. And I deserve more than that. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't tremble. It just held. I need clarity, she said. Not chaos. I need to know if I'm part of your life, or just the fallout of something you can't fix. I stared down at my tea, now cold in my hands. I want to be honest, but I've been protecting Claire for so long, I don't know what that looks like anymore. Then figure it out, she said gently, but not at my expense. When I stood to leave, she walked me to the door. I paused with my hand on the knob. Are you giving me an ultimatum? No, she said. I'm giving myself one. And she closed the door. When I got home, Claire was waiting. She sat on the edge of the bed, barefoot, legs crossed, arms folded across the oversized sweatshirt she'd pulled from my side of the closet. Her eyes were bloodshot, like she hadn't been crying, but had wanted to. You didn't answer your phone, she said. I know. She looked at the overnight bag in my hand. Just a small duffel. Toothbrush. T-shirt. Confusion. Did you sleep with her? She asked. No. She blinked. But you went there. Yes. She nodded like that hurt more. Are you leaving? I don't know, I said. But I needed to go somewhere where I could say the truth out loud. And what's the truth? I sat down on the edge of the bed, not next to her, just close enough to feel the weight of what sat between us. I don't think you ever wanted honesty, I said. I think you wanted control dressed as honesty. You wanted adventure, so long as you held the map. Claire didn't argue. For once, she didn't reach for a quick defense. I thought she was the safe option, she whispered. I looked over. Because you assumed she didn't want love? She met my gaze, and in that moment, something in her cracked, not with drama, but with resignation. Yes. We sat like that for a while. The same room. Different worlds. Finally, I stood and reached for the duffel bag. Claire's voice broke the silence. Are you in love with her? I turned. I don't know, but I know I feel more myself around her than I have in a long time. She looked down. Her fingers twisted into the hem of the sweatshirt. You're not the only one who stopped feeling like themselves, she said. I waited. I've spent years being the organized one, the capable one, the woman who keeps everything from falling apart. And I didn't realize how hard I was working to make sure you didn't fall apart. I exhaled. I never asked you to carry all of it. I know, she said, but I did. And now I don't know what's left of me when I put it down. I looked at her for a long time. I need to know what real honesty feels like, I said. And I can't find it here. Not right now. Claire stood. She didn't cry, didn't beg. She just stepped back and gave me space to leave. And I did. Not with triumph. Not with clarity. But with the quiet ache of someone who'd stopped running from the truth. That night, I didn't go back to Rachel's. I checked into a small hotel on the edge of town. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't glamorous. It just was. I ordered bedroom service and stared at the ceiling until dawn. And in the middle of the night, I got a text. Rachel, thank you for not lying to me. I'm still here. But only if you're walking towards something, not just away from it. I stared at the screen, feeling something old in me stir. Maybe it was relief. Maybe it was fear. Maybe both. Claire didn't reach out for 3 days. She didn't call. Didn't text. The silence wasn't laced with anger. It felt more like pause. Like she needed to rebuild something inside herself before facing me again. And honestly, I didn't blame her. I stayed at the hotel longer than I meant to. The beige walls and humming HVAC system became a strange kind of cocoon, neutral, numb. A waiting room for a life I hadn't fully chosen yet. Then, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, I got a text from her. Claire, can you pick up the kids from school today? I have something to do. That was it. No follow-up. No context. But I said yes. When I arrived at the school, the kids burst out like they always did, shouting about art class and snack mix and who pushed who on the swing. I smiled, listened, drove them home to Claire's house, still technically mine. She wasn't there. I didn't know where she'd gone, but Rachel did. It wasn't until I checked my phone that evening, long after the kids had gone to bed in their rooms, that I saw the message. Rachel, Claire came to see me. I sat on the edge of the bed and read those 5 words over and over. It felt like the moment before a storm hits, a strange, heavy stillness. I waited, unsure if she would send more. She did. Rachel. She wasn't what I expected. I hesitated, then called her. She picked up on the second ring. Are you okay? I asked. Yes, Rachel said. But she's not. I rubbed my temple. I didn't ask her to go. I know. She told me. What did she say? Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then, she asked me not to lie to her. That caught me off guard. And did you? No. I swallowed. What did you tell her? Rachel exhaled. That I never wanted to hurt her. That I never tried to replace her. That I only ever responded to what was already broken between you two. I stood up and started pacing. She cried. Rachel added. What? She came in sharp. Controlled. Asking tight little questions like she had something to prove. But then she cracked. I sat back down. What did she say? I asked softer now. Rachel's voice gentled. She said she didn't know who she was anymore. That she built a perfect house, but didn't know how to live in it. That she thought youth meant immaturity, but maybe immaturity is just hiding behind clever rules. I closed my eyes. She's not the villain, Ethan, Rachel said. She's just lost. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. And you? I'm tired, she said. But I'm still standing. Later that night, after I hung up with Rachel, Claire came home. She didn't look at me when she entered, just slipped off her coat and walked into the kitchen, moving slowly, like someone underwater. I saw her, she said, not turning around. I know. She opened a cabinet, pulled out a glass, and filled it with water. Her hands were shaking. I didn't go to fight, she said. I went to understand what I couldn't see from here. I waited. She said things I didn't want to hear, but I think I needed to. She finally turned to face me. I hated her, Claire said. I needed to. Because if I didn't, I'd have to admit that the thing I feared wasn't her. It was me. The me I abandoned a long time ago. Her voice broke a little. I used to feel things, Ethan. Big things. But somewhere between mortgage payments and birthday parties, I started believing that controlling everything was the same as caring. She leaned back against the counter, staring at her glass. She's not what I expected, Claire admitted. She's not reckless. She's not manipulative. She's real. I know. Claire looked up at me. You chose her. It wasn't a question. I didn't flinch. I didn't choose her over you. I chose truth. She just happened to be standing in it. Claire smiled, but it was sad. That's the difference, isn't it? I asked for an open marriage because I thought we needed more excitement. But she gave you something I never even thought to offer. Honesty. She nodded. And softness. I gave you structure. She gave you air. That hit harder than I expected. She took a breath. I don't want to punish you for that. I just don't know what to do with the part of me that's still terrified. I crossed the room, slowly. I don't blame you for being afraid, I said. But I can't live my life trying to make you feel safe while I slowly disappear. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time in a long while, I saw her walls lower. Then maybe, she said, we should stop pretending that safety and love are the same thing. We stood in silence. Not as enemies. Not even as lovers. Just two people finally telling the truth. The next morning, Claire didn't speak. She moved around the kitchen in soft footfalls, making breakfast for the kids, packing lunches with her usual precision. But something was missing. The performance was gone. No tight smile. No efficient charm. Just motion. Just duty. I stood by the coffee maker, watching her slice strawberries in silence. The hum of the fridge and the clink of the knife were the only sounds between us. Finally, she said, we can't do this anymore. I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. She set the knife down and looked up. Her eyes weren't angry. They weren't pleading. They were tired. Honest. We've been holding this thing together like a sandcastle during high tide, she said, pretending that what we had was still standing. I nodded slowly. Yeah. I can't keep pretending that your heart is still here, she whispered. And you shouldn't either. The kids came barreling down the stairs, interrupting the moment. Claire turned, instantly shifting back into the role of mom, giving them kisses, telling them to brush their teeth again even though they claimed they already had. I stepped outside onto the porch and let the cold morning air sting my face. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Rachel. Rachel, whatever happens, just be honest. With her. With yourself. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the keyboard, then slipped it into my pocket and walked back inside. Claire met me in the hallway, her arms folded loosely. When are you telling them? She asked. I blinked. Telling who what? The kids, she said. That we're separating. The word landed heavily. I haven't decided, I began. Yes, you have, she cut in gently. You just haven't said it out loud yet. She wasn't wrong. I leaned against the wall. What if I said I wanted to try again? Claire tilted her head, unreadable. I'd ask why you want to, she said. Because you miss me? Or because you're scared? I swallowed. I miss what we were. But not what we are. I didn't answer. She nodded. Then let's not drag this out for the sake of what was. That night, after the kids were asleep, we sat on the living room floor. No wine, no distractions, and talked like people who finally stopped acting. Claire went first. I used to feel powerful when I could predict everything, she said. Manage it. Shape it. But somewhere along the way, I started managing you too. And that's not love. I listened. I wanted freedom, she continued. But only if it meant you still stayed in place. When you didn't, I blamed Rachel. But I think I just couldn't face what I turned us into. I looked at her. I kept a lot inside. I know, she said. But I never asked you to open up, did I? I just made it clear that vulnerability wasn't welcome. You didn't make it feel safe. No, she whispered. I made it efficient. We both laughed a little. It wasn't joyful, but it wasn't bitter either. Then she looked at me, softer now. What do you need, Ethan? Not what you're supposed to want. Not what looks good from the outside. Just what you need. I breathed in slowly, searching for the words. I need peace, I said. Claire nodded, her voice barely audible. And right now, she gives you that. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Claire reached for my hand. Not in romance. Not in desperation. Just acknowledgement. I don't hate her, she said. I thought I would. But I don't. She just reminded you what being seen feels like. She reminded me what I feel like, I said. And I couldn't do that anymore. Not without hiding yourself. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. But maybe that's okay. We sat there, knees touching, past and future stretching out in different directions. No one yelled. No one begged. No one stormed out. Just two people finally stopping the slow-motion lie. We told the kids 3 days later. We still love you, Claire said, holding Ellie close. That will never change. We're just going to live in 2 places for a while. They cried, of course. Kids always do. But then they calmed. And something in the room eased. Like even they could feel that the tension that once haunted our walls had lifted. Afterward, Claire asked if I was going to see Rachel. I hesitated. Not tonight. She smiled faintly. It's okay if you do. I gave her a long look. Are you sure? Claire shrugged. I can't be your landing pad and your launch pad. It's time for both of us to stand alone. We hugged in the hallway. Not like lovers, not like partners, but like people who'd built something real and now had to let it go with grace. That night, I sat in my car outside Rachel's building again. I didn't go in right away. I sat there, staring up at her window, wondering if she was awake, if she was alone, if she was thinking about me. Then I texted her. Me. Can we talk? The reply came almost instantly. Rachel. Always. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was betraying anyone. I just felt honest. The house was quieter now. Not heavy like before, when silence meant things unsaid. This was a different kind of quiet. The kind that settles after a storm, when the debris's been cleared, and the wind finally stops asking questions. Claire and I didn't need courts or custody battles. We drew up our own agreement. 2 homes. 2 bedrooms for the kids. Shared weekends. Alternating holidays. No screaming. No lawyers. Just the slow understanding that peace mattered more than pride. The children adjusted like they always do. Faster than we expected, slower than we hoped. There were bedtime tears, of course. Confusing questions. Why don't you and Mommy live together anymore? Are you mad at each other? Will you ever get back together? Claire and I promised to never lie. So we told them the truth, in age-appropriate pieces. We still care about each other, I said once to Ellie. But sometimes love changes shape. And that's okay. She looked up at me, eyes wide and wise. But you still like each other, right? I smiled. We do. That was enough. Rachel didn't move in. She didn't decorate a drawer or claim a side of the bed. She didn't step into the space Claire left behind and try to fill it with herself. Instead, she stayed Rachel. Careful, open, slow. We didn't rush anything. Some nights she stayed over. Some nights I went to hers. Some nights we didn't see each other at all, choosing solitude without fear that it meant something was broken. And that, maybe more than anything, is what made it feel real. It wasn't about passion replacing routine. It was about 2 people choosing connection without urgency, without shame. She still helped with the kids sometimes, but not as the nanny, not even as a step-in mom, just as Rachel, a woman they'd always liked, who was now part of the family, even if the definition had changed. One evening, months later, Claire came by to pick up the kids after a weekend with me. She stood at the door, watching as Ellie ran back to grab her stuffed turtle. Our son, James, was already waiting in the car, headphones on, tuned out. Claire wore a navy wool coat and boots she used to complain pinched her toes. She looked good, strong, like someone who'd begun rebuilding on her own terms. You look well, I said. She gave a small smile. Therapy helps. I chuckled. Yeah, I should go more often. You should, she said gently. Then she looked past me, into the house. She here? No, I said. Not tonight. Claire nodded slowly. I don't hate her, you know. I know. I used to think she was the danger, she added. But really, she just reminded me how long I'd been gone from my own life. I didn't interrupt. I knew how much weight those words carried for her. I'm not jealous anymore, Claire said. I'm sad, but not angry. That's a lot, I said. She turned toward the driveway as Ellie came bounding out with the turtle clutched in both hands. Claire opened the back door and helped her in, then closed it, but she didn't step away yet. Instead, she looked at me again. And for the first time, There was no pain in her eyes, just a calm kind of grief. You were never the one who disappeared, she said. I was. And I don't blame you for needing someone who saw you. I nodded. And I don't blame you for being afraid. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, the same kind she'd worn for years. You know, she said, I thought youth meant immaturity. I thought Rachel was a phase. But maybe immaturity is thinking you can make love obey rules. I gave her a look. That sounds like something Rachel would say. Claire smirked. Maybe she's rubbed off on me. We both laughed. Not bitterly. Not regretfully. Just lightly. Like people who'd finally let go of the narrative they were trying to force. She got into the car and pulled out of the driveway with a wave. And just like that, she was gone. A week later, Rachel and I took the kids to a fall festival. Hayrides, cider, face painting, the works. She held Ellie's hand while I carried James on my shoulders, and for the first time, it felt like something we weren't borrowing. Afterward, Claire came to pick them up from the parking lot. There was a brief moment where the three of us stood together, Rachel, Claire, and me. No tension, no rivalry. Just a quiet acknowledgement that life doesn't always fall apart. Sometimes it just rearranges. Claire looked at Rachel and smiled. Not big, but real. Thanks for watching them, she said. Rachel nodded. They're easy to love. Claire looked at me once more, then opened the car door. The kids piled in. And just before she drove away, she gave me a small nod. A thank you, maybe. Or a goodbye to a version of us we'd finally outgrown. Later that night, Rachel curled up next to me on the couch. No words, just warmth. We watched some old documentary she picked out, something about broken things being rebuilt with gold. Kintsugi. I held her hand, my thumb brushing her knuckles. I used to think peace was boring, I said. Rachel looked at me, her head on my shoulder. And now I think it's the most honest thing I've ever felt. She didn't answer. She didn't have to.